I come to you with a situation. I have a beautiful, lovely, wonderful friend named Lindsay, also known as Winsy, and her birthday is in 1 week. Actually less than that, 6 days. But the birthday party is in 1 week. I am a person who crafts things, makes things, crochets things. I am sure you can see where I'm going with this. Because she's just a wonderful, lovely person, Lindsay has expressed a lot of support for my creative endeavors and crochet projects, but she has a special fondness for one thing I have made, which is bunny scarf, fondly known as bnnuy. I will insert clips of this bunny scarf because I don't have it with me because it's in storage because I got evicted. Don't worry about it. Basically, the plan. I'm sure everyone has deduced what the situation is by now. I'm going to make her a bunny scarf. Is it still summer? Yes. Is it cute? So who cares? Yes. However, this comes with a couple of issues. Issue 1, I didn't use a pattern for this. I freehanded the entire thing. Oops! To the dismay of everyone who was like, oh my god, do you have a tutorial? Can I have a pattern for this scarf? I freehanded it. I freehanded the whole thing. I didn't write anything down. So now I need to replicate it, but with pretty much no guide. And I don't even have the original object with me to use as reference, but I can do it, I think. So I figured, since I'm making another one anyway, I might as well film it so that anyone who wanted to know how to make one could see the process. And even though this isn't going to be like a cut and dry, like straightforward tutorial, I am going to try and like explain the steps as I do them. So at the very least, it can be helpful if you want to make a scarf like this. I don't know. Also, if this is your first time ever seeing me, hi, I'm Kokiri. I do crochet stuff, craft stuff, D&D stuff. Sometimes I talk about horror. That was kind of just one video. That was weird. Nice to meet you, and please wish me luck on this project, because not only do I not have a lot of time, but also I'm kind of just freestyling the whole thing, which has never gone poorly for me before, so it'll probably be fine. Also, important disclaimer, the original bunny scarf I made was inspired by this artist and this scarf. I didn't use this pattern or anything when I made mine. I pretty much just freestyled it based on this, and mine ended up looking quite different from the original. I just wanted to give that disclaimer that this is not necessarily my original idea, but I'm also not like straight up copying this, if that makes sense. Credit where credit is due. So yeah, I should probably get started because otherwise I'm doomed. Wish me luck.
If you can spot my cat in this clip, then 10 points or whatever. Let's get started. Yes, I'm using Red Heart Super Saver. I don't want to hear it, okay? It brushes out really well and it looks very like fluffy when you brush it, and it works for this project. Don't talk to me about it. We're gonna start with the feet. The size of the feet will vary based off of the size of your scarf and also how big you want the actual rabbit to be, but I find that starting with chaining 3 works best. Then you're gonna chain 1 to chain up, and then you're just gonna do 3 single crochets. If you want your rabbit to have especially large, clunky feet, then you can obviously do more single crochets. Stitches in general, but I find this size works. Once you're done your first row of single crochets, you're just going to increase by putting 2 stitches into the first stitch, and then also increase on the end, putting 2 stitches in the last stitch. Obviously this will vary based on the number of stitches you have, but for me this ended up being 5 stitches. This will give you a slightly rounded shape, which will basically be like the tips of the little bunny's feet. Also, did you know that bunnies don't have like toe beans? They just have like furry little feet. Anyway, then you're basically just gonna do single crochets over and over and over again until you my voice until the length is however long you think a bunny's leg should be, basically. Once it's the length that you want it to be, you're going to repeat this 4 times. For the first 2, you're going to just fasten off and cut the yarn as usual, and then on the other 2 you're going to leave the yarn long so that you can put the 2 paws together and then slip stitch them together. I found that when I only did 1 layer for the paws, they kind of like curled up like little tentacles, and I guess if you want to make a bunny with tentacles you can do that, but I wanted mine to look like feet, so I found that doing 2 layers made it have more weight, and then they would lay nicer as a scarf. Then you're going to be left with something like this, and you're going to leave the yarn attached, and then you're going to go ahead and make something that I can only really think to call the bunny rabbit's thigh gap. Basically, you're going to chain the spot that like the tail and the rest of the width of the scarf is going to be, and then you are going to attach the other leg. To attach it, basically when you just finish the chain and it's whatever length you want, you just slip stitch across the top of the second leg. Once you're done slip stitching across the second leg, you're basically going to have the entire width of your scarf, and then you get to begin the process of single crocheting over and over and over again. Basically, you're going to chain 1 and then single crochet across the width of the leg. Then once you get to the chain thigh gap situation, you're going to just single crochet into the chain as you would if you were just like single crocheting into a starting chain until you get to the other leg. Then you're going to single crochet across that leg, and then proceed to do that a bajillion more times over and over again until it is scarf length. To get you through the monotony of scarf making, here's my lovely cat.
Okay, so it's been a few days. I haven't really done much in between the clips you last saw and what I'm about to show you. This is pretty much what I did in like one day. I have about this much done. I would consider this about halfway of like the actual scarf part because it just needs to sit there, wrap around, and then the head has to sit like there. It is currently Wednesday. The birthday party is on Saturday. Considering I did all of this in one sitting, I think it's achievable that I finished this in time. Also, I'm filming this in the kitchen because I tried to film outside and the AC was really loud, and also it was very hot because I live in Florida, and this is like the only room in the house that has good lighting, and I thought maybe filming just in the one room exclusively might be boring. So, kitchen crochet shot. Yeah. I'm just going to get back to work on this. This is going by really quickly, but also this is the easy part because it's literally just single crochet back and forth. I'm hoping I can make the bunny head a little bit faster this time, considering I already made it once and it looked like a horse, but then I kind of troubleshooted and made it look okay. I'm a little nervous for that part, but so far going pretty good.
I then proceeded the process of single crocheting over and over and over and over and over again until it was scarf length, which was slightly more difficult than usual because I'm surrounded by perfect, precious, soft purring creatures. Like, get a load of this idiot. Oh my fucking god. The little black and white kitty is Laika, who I've had for 13 years, but everyone at the vet says that she looks like she is 6. So I'm just gonna go with that. She's 6, and Fern is 2 years old and obsessed with string. So obviously crocheting and knitting is a bit challenging with her around, but also she's perfect, so what am I gonna do about it?
The next step is obviously making the head. So I'm going to basically try and replicate what I did last time, and hopefully it looks fine. Before I was using a 5mm hook, but I'm going to move down to a 4mm. Since I'm going to have to stuff this, I want to make sure that the stitches are tight so the stuffing doesn't poke through. The bunny is going to have little feetsies on the front too. So basically I'm going to leave 5 stitches on this side and 5 stitches on this side. In between those 5 stitches on each side, I'm going to start the head. Are you here to help? So what I'm going to do is count 1, 2, 3. Hello? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to start in this stitch. So I'm going to do a slip knot, tighten, and pull that through. Yeah, we're going to take it and pull it through. What do you think of that? And basically what we're going to do is slip stitch along the entire parameter until we get to the last until we get to the last 5 stitches that we also have to leave for the other foot. Okay, so then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that means I have enough stitches for both the arms. And then after I do that, I'm basically just going to chain. This chain is basically going to be like the other side of the bunny's neck that creates the hole that I'm going to stuff its head in. Everything I'm saying sounds so gross. It'll make more sense once I'm done. But basically you're going to want to... Oh. Okay. Oh, that's very interesting. Oh. Basically, you're going to want to make a chain, and then you're going to go to where the neck starts and slip stitch. Then you're kind of going to have this weird hole, and this is going to be basically the start of the amigurumi head that we're going to make for the bunny. Stay with me. So once we slip stitched, we're going to chain 1, and then we're basically gonna just go across the chain and do single crochets. So single crochet across the entire chain, and then single crochet across the width here. So then you're basically like connecting it into a circle. I hope that makes sense. If you've ever made amigurumi, then this part will probably seem like common sense to you, but if you haven't, basically we're just going to keep going around and around doing single crochets. We're not going to chain up or anything. We're just going to keep going around and around. And it's kind of going to be in like a spiral. And our goal is more or less to create like a long oval shape. So I'm going to get a little bit of height to start the head, and then I'm going to slowly make decreases so it kind of rounds out. So after a couple of minutes, this is basically what I have after going around and around for a little bit. It's basically like a circle that we're later going to like close off at the tip and then stuff. I'm probably gonna make it maybe like this much more tall, and then I'm gonna start rounding it off. His head is so small. It's like the size of my hand, and compared to my other bunny scarf, which the head is kind of gigantic, he feels very little, but hopefully he looks regular once I'm done working with him. This scarf is also significantly less like wide than my other scarf, so I'm hoping he'll look normal.
Even though I pretty much messed up his skull and made him way too little, the tutorial for making him look not fucked up is pretty much the same, so I'm still going to explain it. Basically, you're going to do what I said and go around and around doing single crochets without chaining up for each row, and once it's the length that you think a rabbit's head should probably start having a nose, you're going to start adding decreases. The number of decreases will depend on how big the head is initially, so it'll depend on how big you end up making your scarf, but basically you're going to add just a couple to start and then slowly increase the amount of decreases you're adding so that it basically tapers off into a point. At this point you can stuff it and basically check how it looks. Here I am thinking it looks pretty good, and here I am the next day in the light of day realizing it in fact looks very silly and his head is way too small. So I went back and basically frogged the entire thing, but literally the only thing I changed was making it bigger, so the steps are the same, even though I beefed it. In order to accommodate the additional bulbousness of his head, I added basically just like a little rim of single crochets and then decreased it a couple of times to taper it in and then attach it to the main part of the scarf. I could have just used a yarn needle to attach it, but I didn't know where it was and I was too lazy to look, so I just did this.
I'm definitely glad that I made the head bigger. It definitely looks a lot better now that it's a little bigger. I'm going to go in and kind of like stitch it a little bit more to this because it's kind of like wobbling around. It is currently Friday. The birthday party is tomorrow. I'm hoping that I can finish it in time. Pretty much the only things I have left is to take this from like strange worm to bunny rabbit. So I pretty much have to do the two front legs, the ears, face, and that's it. I think that is attainable to finish today. Hopefully. I know it kind of just looks like a ball on the end of a scarf right now. It will look better. Also, I'm gonna go in with a little bit of needle felting because I found that made the other scarf I made look a lot better. Specifically around the eyes, I find it made a big difference. So let's get back to work.
First things first, we are going to do the front legs, which is basically the exact same thing as the back legs, but we're gonna do it backwards. So instead of starting at 3 stitches and then increasing to 5, we're going to start at 5 stitches and then decrease to 3 at the tips, or whatever stitch length that you have. You're also going to do the same process as before, where you make another layer basically separately and then slip stitch it together because again, you don't want little bunny tentacles. Once you have the leggies on, you get to take your strange worm creature and make it actually start looking like a bunny rabbit. The next step is actually a step I should have done a while ago because I'm using safety eyes that snap from the back and oops, I already stuffed it and sewed it together. So I had no way of putting the backs on properly. You should add the eyes basically like as soon as you have the shape of the head correctly, add the eyes, then stuff it. But I basically had to go through the process of torturing this poor rabbit by sticking my crochet hook in, and God, that's brutal. Basically the way I solved this problem is putting the safety backing onto the eye, then shoving the eye into a hole, and then taking my crochet hook and then also a needle and then just stabbing it into the hole I've created and then snapping it shut, which worked. But you probably don't want to do it this way. But if you do it this way, then you probably owe your scarf an apology. But next we're going to move on to the facial sculpting. This step is going to do a lot to making it look like an actual rabbit with like actual facial features and not just an egg with eyes. You're basically going to take a needle with some yarn on it. You're basically going to bring the needle up from the bottom and then up to the eyes. You're going to just do a short line of yarn. That's so violent. You're going to do a short stitch basically and then pull. And it's going to make the eyes kind of sunken, not in a creepy way, but in a way where it's going to look more realistic. You're going to do this for both eyes and then bring the yarn back down to the bottom and then pull, and then it'll start the shaping. You can kind of like finagle it a little bit, and it's already looking so much less egg-like. You're also going to do the same thing basically to add like the little bunny 3 face, where you're going to do a stitch at the tip and then make it kind of like indented like a butt. Then you can just tie off the yarn at the bottom and then weave back and forth inside of the head so the yarn basically gets like entangled in the stuffing. Then we can move on to the... Why did I do that? We can move on to the ears, which is basically just a bunch of stitches, whatever length you want the ears to be, minus like an inch because it's going to get longer once we do more rounds of stitches. Once you have the length that you need it to be, you're basically just going to do single crochets all the way down the chain until you get to the end. And then once you get to the tip at the very last stitch, you're going to do 3 single crochets into the hole instead of 1. This is going to create the rounded shape for the tip of the ears that we want, and it's basically going to make like an oval shape. And then once you've done the 3 stitches, you're going to go back into the chain that you just worked in and then work down the other side. You're once again just going to do single crochets all the way down that thing. Then once you get to the other end, you're just going to chain 1 and then work back around normally, making sure to put 3 stitches into the tip every time you get to like the rounded part. You're basically just gonna repeat this process until you have it as wide as you want your bunny ears to be. For mine, I'm pretty sure I did 3 rounds, and then once you're done, you should generally have a shape like this. And then you're gonna check, make sure it looks not ridiculous, and then you're gonna do it again, because bunnies usually have 2 ears, and then you're gonna do it 2 more times for basically like the pink inner part of the bunny. The pink part is exactly the same as the white part, except for if you want it to be posable, you're gonna put wire in it. And basically the way you do this is once you're on your last row, doing the width of the ear, you're gonna like crochet around the wire. Basically as if you're like crocheting over your ends, except it's wire. Make super duper sure to either bend the ends or dip them in hot glue so that they're not pointy. And then before I sewed the ears on, I brushed mine out to make it very floofy poofy and soft. If your yarn's already fluffy, obviously you don't have to do this step, but I'm basically just taking one of those dog brushes, not the ones with the little nubs on them, and then brushing it. And basically here's what it looked like before, and here's what it looked like after. Very fluffy puffy. Very soft. Once he was brushed out and I also sewed the ears on, I went in and I basically like stitched on the facial details. I used some pink yarn to sew on a line for his mouth and then also a V for his little sniffer nose. This is basically just embroidery. You can do it however you want, but I found that this general shape looks very cute, very friendly, very polite. I went over the stitches a couple of times just to make sure they were visible, and doing this step also adds a little bit to like the facial shaping element. And then he actually starts looking like a bunny. He's so cute. The next step is totally optional, but I'm going to take some needle felting wool and basically do his like bunny eyeliner. I find that this added a lot to making him look more realistic when I did my last bunny, and it looks very cute, even though it does look like I am once again torturing him. I added a couple more little needle felting details off camera, and then finally, he's finished. And it's time for the reveal.
Fucking hot. Ta-da! There he is! I can't believe I actually managed to finish this on time. It is like a couple of weeks after I gifted this to my friend. Spoiler alert, she loved it. I forget what she named him, but I'll insert his name here. But yeah, he turned out so cute. I feel like he definitely looks a little bit more mischievous than my last one, which I'm into. I think he's very cute. Here's how the like shaping of the face turned out, by the way. He's got little nostrils. He's definitely not as long as my original, but he's still pretty long. Let me take him off, not only because I'm so warm, but also I can show you how long he is. His little bunny feet are on the floor right now, so he's still at least like a foot taller than I am. And I'm 5'2". So he's at least like 6 feet long. But yeah, I'll give you a couple little close-up details. Fluffy little bunny butt. This is just a pom-pom that I like brushed out and now it looks like a little bunny tail. Obviously his little feet, his little front paws, and of course his bendy ears. I think he's very handsome, very cute, very lovely. When I hold him like this, it looks weird. I need to put him back on. I'm very pleased with how he turned out. I will never be making another one of these again. Unless I actually do decide to sit down and write a full pattern. Making these, especially without a pattern, is very stressful, and very time consuming. But he turned out so cute, so like worth it. I hope that any part of this video was at least a little bit helpful to you if you want to recreate something like this. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed it, subscribe or something, because I post videos like this sometimes. If you're into crafting, sewing, crochet, fiber arts, thrifting, D&D, or horror, that's some of the stuff I like. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you have a great day, and I hope this video came out in time so that if you did want to make one of these, you won't be outside in the blistering heat like I was. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a good day. Bye.